Welcome back to Artificial Antics, where Rico and Mike will talk about the implications and opportunities around artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. In this episode, AI and Wrangling Your Data, the guys talk with Tim Hayden, CEO at Brain Trust Partners. Tim is a seasoned expert in data and customer experience, helping businesses navigate the complexities of digital transformation and data governance.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Artificial Antics. I am Rico with my co-host Mike, and we are here with Tim Hayden from Brain Trust and the human side of AI. So we'll get the show started with having Tim kind of explain how he ended up with AI and talk a bit about some of the projects he's working on. Tim?
Rico, Mike, it's great to be here. Really appreciate you guys having me on the show. And I'll say this on behalf of the human side of AI and unpack what that is in just a second. But thanks for all the support you guys give. Thanks for being there on Wednesdays and, hooting and hollering for us on LinkedIn and all the other places. The human side of AI was really built as a forum. It was built as an exchange for people that are across the car business, really, right? The retail automotive world, dealers, people that are vendors and consultants and agencies and software, gurus, and of course, artificial intelligence products, to really talk about what's happening in that industry, which is a whole lot of change, which is coming from all directions, going in all directions. And because of that, Wendy Reeves, being the fearless leader of that group and the folks that she put together with it, I think, we're doing our damnedest to talk about use cases, what's working, what's not working, even spotlighting some technologies each week when we can, and hearing about, what is this looking like for everybody as they employ automation, intelligence of a different kind, and moving forward in the business. While I'm introducing myself, I'll tell you, I'm the CEO of Brain Trust Partners, and at Brain Trust, we help companies build themselves into a future-ready position because of everything I just said, right? There is a tremendous amount of accelerated change with technology, and with that, behavior, employee happiness, employee churn, customer happiness, customer churn. We're seeing it happen. We've seen it happen a whole lot just over the last 10, 12 years with the web, digitization, smartphones, Amazon. A whole lot has changed in a short period of time, and now it's changing faster, I think, with even more cadence. What does all that mean is we help people build a single source of truth and understand the DNA of their organization, which comes down to data. We do total integration of 100% of the systems that, in this case, car dealers are using. And with that, they're able to check a big box with a lot of the compliance that is shown down on them by the FTC, state legislatures, and the like. But at the same time, improve their operations, reduce their media expenses, cut their call times in half, have their bays filled, talk to customers that they haven't talked to in 8 or 10 years, because that's dark data that's buried in the organization. Yeah. Wake it up. Let's see what we can do, right, to really light a fire in the business. And that's what we do. We do it with customer data platforms and master data management solutions like Axle Automotive. Exciting times right now for the industry, and certainly exciting times with all that's happening with AI.
That's awesome, Tim. Yeah, like we talked a little bit before we got started here about how there's a huge trend in that's starting to emerge. Well, I guess I don't know how long ago it started to emerge, but I've been hearing about it more and more, which is the fact that people are sitting on gold mines, right? Like there are a bunch of untapped gems and minerals that are sitting right there, right? And you got me started thinking this way, honestly, the first time we talked, where you said, hey, this is like 12 years of data. And you said specifically 12 years. I think it was because that's where you started getting the social media stuff and the different channels of data. And it's there, and people are going for these, top of funnel solutions to try and acquire these new customers. But it's like, No, bring back the old ones. I love what you said. Wake up your data. I've never heard that. And so to me, I'm like, wake up your data. I'll never forget that. And that's a great way to say, like, hey, let's take this older data that you probably realize it's there. You've forgotten about it. You've swept it away. And let's reinvigorate that and take that, put it together to build that total picture.
That's right.
Of the business, your customers, your market, and really, move things forward, and get that value out of that data. So, yeah,
you bet. I mean, Peter Smith, who is a part of that Human State of AI group, that forum, Peter Smith, about every other Wednesday, will mention the value of the known customer. Right? He will talk about the fact that your propensity and opportunity to close business with people who bought from you in the past is much higher than someone who's net new you're trying to reel in. And to that point, dealers tell me all the time that they'll spend, $500 to $1,000 just to get somebody to matriculate from cars.com or Auto Trader and build and price on the site to get them to the lot. They'll invest that much, and most of their marketing automation is set up to automatically spend that money for them. When what we're talking about is a respectable investment in the systems you have today to bring them together and to, as we've said a few times, wake up that dark data, actually will point you in the direction of people who probably have a history of spending a lot of money in the parts department, spending a lot of money in services, not just buying vehicles from you, but there's a total value that you're not seeing when you only look at that marketing and that sales and that F&I data. You're missing the picture. So with that, really leaning into that, and I won't quote it and misrepresent it, but Peter, when he gives the stats on that, it's pretty impressive what your close rate is with a known existing customer versus a net new lead. It's amazing.
I was just say that I know from my personal experience, with the dealerships around in my state, that a lot of families shop at the same dealership, right? It's like, oh, your parents will say something to you, and if your family had been shopping there for years and then just started going somewhere else, you dig that stuff up, run it through some GPTs, right, and find that trend analysis, and then figure out, okay, well, where are we going to go with it? Let's contact them again, see what happened. Tell that story of the dealership and why the business, started losing people, where they went.
Rico, be careful though. We don't run that through GPTs, right? We don't.
Right.
I knew it. I saw Tim.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, here it comes.
Customer information in GPTs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's huge. So exactly, Tim. What you said. You're never running customer data through public GPTs, LLMs, tools. I think that there is an interesting line because, like, if you look at some of these tools, like, let's say ChatGPT Team, right? Like, everything's private, they're SOC 2 compliant, they're this, they're that. The reality is, though, you're still running that through the open internet and external LLMs. So this was actually one of the things I don't think I threw on the agenda, but I was really want to hone in with you on a little bit more and to understand. So what's the difference between, let's say, people taking their data, they've got their data, they throw different sets of their data into tools that are on the internet, like let's say ChatGPT or even others, and what you're doing there at Brain Trust, like the solution that you're providing.
You bet. I mean, I just want to. I was looking at my phone because I look it up. The company Zenity and their CEO Michael Bargery. You guys may have seen that he was at the Black Hat Security Conference in Vegas just about a week ago, and he got up on stage and demonstrated 5 different things you could do to manipulate Microsoft's Copilot to become a phishing malware, right? To basically come in, yank data off the computers in which it's installed. That's scary because Copilot is now being brought to market as part of everything in Office 360.
Yes.
It's 365. I mean, it is there. It's omnipresent. It's there with SharePoint. It's there with Teams. And lo and behold, I shared this on LinkedIn, but the CrowdStrike, the CrowdStrike event, we'll just call it that, right? Mm-hmm. It coincided with an update from Microsoft, and my belief is that CrowdStrike was just doing its job. It was stopping people from bringing this in because it proposed some type of vulnerability or threat, you know? And that brings us back to, the difference between applied artificial intelligence and private language models versus those that are public. The differences are pretty marked and pretty obvious once you start to explain them. Is that, ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude is another example. These are systems that are trained on data that is at best maybe 6 months old. Even with RAG, it's still just pulling in public data, right? It's only pulling in public data. So there's two problems with that. One is if you wanted to do research and you wanted to ask for certain statistical research about current trends, a lot of the current trends are not going to be able to be modeled or pulled by these models because the data is old. There's that. Right. The other side of this is that as you and your business are wanting to employ some type of language model to help you do things faster, to help you generate content, to give you direction, give you a head start on an email or a blog post or whatever it is you're doing. As you're doing this, there's the security threat we already said. You don't want to share data with a third party, but at the same time, you want to have that model trained on your business.
Yes.
You know? And we can unpack that in a little bit because it's a little bit of a story to tell you, but the first order of business is to get your data together, right? And that's where master data management comes into play. Outside the automotive business, this is where companies like Databricks have just taken off like wildfire. Databricks is a fantastic system, if you want to call it that, that allows you to bring all your data in and to cleanse it, resolve it, and structure it, which is what a lot of customer data platforms do with marketing data. It's what all master data management systems do for performance data warehousing. And to do that and to get the performance out of it, you got to clean it, you got to resolve it. You got to segment it, you got to do all the other things with it, and then the use cases from there are endless once you're at that point. So a nice next step, as we've looked at both the capacity of some firms to build private language models and then others to capitalize on open source models like Llama 3.
Right.
Is bring Llama 3 into your environment, close it off and make sure it's secure. And then from there, let's look at building a logic tree based on the decisions and the workflows of your business, of a certain human or certain team members.
Right.
Let's train the bot to act like those team members, and then let's train it on your data. And when we do that, everything becomes brand centric, customer centric.
Yes.
And the questions that you ask it, if it's trained to create content for you, it'll be specific to you, your brand style guidelines, all of these things, right? And it's just markedly different than when you just go up to a public model and you ask it to do things for you, right? There's fewer hallucinations and there's fewer just wrong answers when you're dealing with data you control.
Absolutely. And I will say a couple things there. One is that with custom GPTs, which obviously I'm telling people, hey, like PII, like nothing can go in there with that and all these things, but I'm still helping people to build tools. And I say, here's the starting point. Because, they're thinking, I want an outcome. And I'm like, that's cool. We'll talk about the outcome.
Right.
How would a human get to that outcome, right? How would a human get to that outcome, right? And then so we'll actually build up, right, a core set of data that transcends across GPTs. This is like your brand voice, your brand identity, your tone, different things like that. And then it's like, okay, the next layer is like more specific knowledge and training, right? Which is like the stuff that's all right, we're gonna build a sales and marketing or go to market GPT to do these things based on some specific data. And then it's like, okay, now what are our inputs, our decisions, where it's like, okay, select this, and then it's like, what's your actual data? Like, okay, put the brand name in that you're looking to market to, right?
Right.
And so that, that no matter what, you have to figure out how a human is going to do that effectively, which means, and I love Wendy says, get your house in order, right? And I was talking to our CEO today, and I was like, yeah, you have to have that process down, and it has to be efficient, because you build a custom GPT to do the same thing. And if you build it, maybe it's more efficient, but it's not effective, right? Like it's not because you're not effective with humans doing that same thing.
Right. I mean, and I think that's just it. I mean, we've done this since the earth cooled, right? We've manufactured mechanics systems that best conform to what the human operation looks like, right? We are the ones who are looking for the outcomes, as you already said, right? We have objectives. We have qualitative and quantitative intentions with what we want to achieve with businesses, respectively, happiness and revenue, right? I mean, let's be honest, right? We're looking at how we can build margins. We're looking at, as I said before, if we can cut call times in half and reduce our media spend by 20 or 30%, maybe there's a little bit of savings we can pass along to the customer, and the rest we can put in our pocket, right? That's what technology has always promised to do. And I would argue that that AI is the first one to holistically afford us an opportunity to make things like that happen. And the old adage, faster, better, cheaper. AI is the first thing that allows us to do all three of those things, right?
Yes.
In the past, you could not do all three.
Just two of three. Yep.
You couldn't do all three, but AI, when it is configured and when it is implemented, and it's put in practice with, in a thoughtful way, and it is centered around how the humans can get value out of it, that's where you can really get into this, right? You can get into the faster, better, cheaper, and that does all those things. It creates what Wall Street wants to see: lower capex and more revenue, right? That's what we're after here.
Right. Yeah, well, exactly, because like when you're looking at growth overall, right? You can grow the revenue, but you're adding value, I should say, right? You can either add revenue and grow, and you want to do that, obviously, but you can also add efficiency gains, right?
Correct.
And save money, right? And save and do more. And I saw a quote that I really liked, and I put it in our AI Bytes newsletter either last week or the week before, and it was like, if a company finds that it can do something 100 times faster, they generally will do that operation X number of times more, rather than saying, okay, well, now we can just do it faster. Let's do it faster and walk out the door, right?
More volume.
Increased volume.
Exactly. The increased volume, velocity. And I do agree with you. I've talked to a few people about that, where I'm like, faster, better, cheaper. It's to pick two, right? Pick two forever.
Pick two and go. Yeah.
And I do think that you're right. This is the first time we've ever had it where it's like, okay, it's like it's not even just on the horizon, but you do have to do it well. You have to do it well. You have to have the adoption. You have to do it mindfully, I think you said a few minutes ago, and intentfully, right? Do it with intent. And you really have to have what I'm going to call like a really good framework to reproducibly do it well, right?
Right.
So, and I guess that's kind of what I'd like to segue into is, you don't have to give me the mix of the secret sauce, but what I find even personally is like, sure, we can build, LLMs and open source libraries are fantastic. We can host it on our own servers. We can do this, we can do that, keep it all in house. But to reproduce that and deploy that at scale, that's where my mind is not quite there yet. Even though I know people are doing it, I don't think a ton of people are doing that well yet, right? Like the ML ops or the biz ML ops. So can you speak to that a little bit about, some of the challenges that are faced, and again, without giving away the secret sauce, like how you're solving some of those challenges and what that onboarding ramp looks like for a business that's going to use brain trust to accomplish the stuff that you talked about?
Well, you bet. There's a sequence to how, an order of events, right? And order priorities, I think, is the better way to say it in terms of how we do this. But all in all, I think, let's face this. We have these hats. I wish I would have brought one in the studio with me. I'd show it to you. I'm doing that for the next time. But right. but we have these hats that we wear at Brain Trust when we have team meetings, and every once in a while, when we know we've got a lighthearted, fun client with us, we'll wear them when they walk in the room, and it says right on the hat, it says, "Actually, this is my first rodeo," and it's more of a mindset, right? Yeah. It's a mindset that we all have to have. Is that there is no such thing as best practices. There hasn't been for some time. There's not been best practices. Yeah. There's really not much room for playbooks that apply for more than one company or more than one department within the same company, right? You can have guidelines, you can have policies. Absolutely. We need those.
Yes.
We have to have those in place, especially when it comes to data governance. But at the end of what we're talking about here, for people to capitalize on this and to weave it into their workflows, their work streams, I think we have to have everyone embrace really the fact that we're going to experiment, we're going to explore, and we're going to figure this out together. And honestly, when you think about that and you think about the accelerated rate of change, we need to also understand that we're going to iterate how we optimize and how we leverage what it is we have licensed and what it is we're building in terms of that digital experience, which is just a customer experience and certainly a human experience, right?
Right.
For us, it all starts with a data intelligence task force. Some companies like to call them AI councils. But bringing leadership in from each of the business units in the organization, this is not just a marketing thing, right?
Yeah.
This is a holistic enterprise opportunity, and we need to bring in representation and hopefully leadership from each of the business units and the operations centers, cost centers sometimes if they're defined, branches if they're banks, right? Even then within each branch, we need representation. They all come in, and for a few months, we build a consensus of digital literacy and a consensus of the prioritization of their use case desires. What do they aspire to do differently? Which all starts with a current state analysis. How do you do business today? Right. And us suggesting to them ways that they could employ automation, ways they could turn processes that take 5 steps and turn it into 2 steps.
Yeah.
That lasts a couple of months, and that's discovery. And then that task force is who becomes our point of contact. We may still have a CMO, we have a CPO or someone else involved.
Yeah.
In the car business, it's a dealer principal usually who's tuned into what we're doing.
Yeah.
They may be there, but their lieutenants, right, who are on the front line of the business, are also going to be a part of this. Not always committee approval, but always community discourse, right? Community discussions and pondering what it is we're doing and what we expect to get out of the investment. So all that does is, for the software vendors that are listening to this, is it better informs the scope that your company's going to put on the work order for the CRM, the marketing automation system, the chatbot, or anything else you're going to configure for them. If you don't invest in that early diligence, and that's what consultants like we do, if you're not bringing that in to get that nailed down, then I'm sorry for you, because that's what's going to have them not renew their license with you.
Sure.
That's what's going to find you up the creek without that paddle within 6 months, 8 months, certainly 12 months when things start to happen, because you just weren't clear in what their needs were, because you tried to sell it to them the way you did the last person. And AI takes that even deeper, because it has to be bespoke. It has to be customized. No two companies are operating the same way. They don't have the same audiences. They're not selling the same stuff. That's it.
That's right. Excellent. That definitely clears up. The thing is, like, I guess what I'm wondering is how long, so you said it takes about 2 months to kind of go through that first stage of, let's call it discovery, right? Once you've discovered, once you've kind of got aligned with your, what did you call it? Data intelligence team, data intelligence group?
Data Intelligence Task Force.
Task Force. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like at Clarity, I actually call this group the AI ambassadors, right? Like, so right. I just came up, this was last July or whatever, when I really started like saying, hey, we need to start building and, be intentional about this, start building policies, start doing this. And so I've got a group, I think we're about 10 people. Right. And, right. And again, yeah, it's exactly what you said, right? If I didn't just want this to be the Mike Onslow show, right? I'm not the AI godfather. I want this to be really omnipresent throughout the whole company, and have really everybody enabled and on board. Otherwise, you just won't get the adoption, right? They'll say, "Oh, Mike's doing cool stuff with AI," or they'll expect
he showed me something once.
They'll kind of expect you to feed it to them, right? Whereas, like, you can feed it to them a little bit. But then you need to they need to learn how to cook, right? Like I think about it with kids too. It's like, sure, you can feed them and everything, but it's like, oh, let's make French toast together. You know what I mean? And like step that way they could actually go and they're part of the process, right? Literally part of the process, which then gives them that skin in the game, that buy-in, right? And so I find that, even there are challenges even with having that group, right? I mean, just because people are time strapped and everything else, right? As we all know, we're all busy. We all have stuff going on, but it's really, I think just having the conversations a lot of times, right? Like in the office, I was there yesterday too. And I literally talked to 3 different people about some of the capabilities and different stuff that we're doing within the company. And they're coming up to me and saying, well, what about this? And I have this idea. And I'm like, well, let's go take a look at how we could do that, right? Draw on the whiteboard and sort of like work through things, and which gets everybody involved. And I'm very fortunate because our CEO, Gary, is literally like, he'll do sessions, like when he's doing something, he's working on a project, he'll actually have somebody involved, and he'll, the people involved, like, hey, now you do this and try this and whatnot. And I don't think that's like that at every company. So I'm very fortunate that I have like a serious advocate at the very top. He's the founder of the company that that is similar to me, and like he is ensuring, right, that we're using this stuff and using it responsibly as well, right? Because that's extremely important, right? I mean, you can't just go and let's just throw our sales information for the last 10 years into ChatGPT. It'll crunch some numbers for us. The free version, by the way, just throw it on out there. And so there are definitely some some things to watch out for. And that's another thing that I found is extremely important, is like when we're doing our quarterly sessions, we have virtual events, we have in-person events where we bring everybody in. Like every one of those, I'm doing some sessions on, using it responsibly, where you can find the data. And that is, I feel like that sort of it reminds people, as well as then enlightens people who especially are newer to the company, right? Because you're going to have new people on the teams and whatnot. And another thing that we've done too is we've incorporated it into our onboarding process. Like it's actually part of the process, and it's not just, here's the handbook, right? It's like, hey, here's some real things, and we're going to kind of test you on that comprehension and run you through some role play. So that type of stuff. Otherwise, they're not going to know what they don't know, right? Right. So, so that's what I find with AI, especially, or AI ML, especially. It's like people just think, oh wow, this can do this really amazing stuff really fast. And you've got to look at, we had a guest on. Our last guest was Tim Kakur, another Tim, right? He's the CEO at Task Drive. And he mentioned this thing that I really like, which he puts when he does like a 12-week AI first mindset and helps people build the tools and everything, but also really trains them on that mentality and safety and security. And he said, we teach them to kind of like put a sticky note with AI question mark on it, like somewhere prominent, where it's like, hey, I'm about to do this thing. AI? You know what I mean? It gets you thinking. And I was thinking after that, I'm like, so I did like a little graphic of like AI ? Securely, safely ? Like on a different post-it note, because it's just extremely important. So, and I'm not just paranoid. I mean, it's like really important. So.
It absolutely is. I mean, and amen. Good for you for being in a situation, for having the support from all around you to be able to socialize this, right? I mean, that's what this has to be. I chuckle a little bit when I see announcements that a company has created a chief AI officer, right? I chuckle, and I do so out of ignorance. I don't know what these people's responsibilities are other than what they're sharing. Right. But at the same thing, it's not always going to be this of all things cannot be top down alone, right? This has to be one of those things that's very flat in terms of how it's managed, for one simple fact that at this current moment in history, most of the software and the dashboards and the systems you use right now on your desktop computer, most of those systems are starting to bake some level of automation, some level of AI, if not generative AI, into them. And you have people in different divisions, different departments who have by themselves a credit card put on a website, or they've got the license for a piece of software, and they're not always going to the CTO or the CMO or the CFO. They got their budget and they spend it, and they do so within their wing of the building. And we need to do exactly as you said before, in the same similar way, is we need to ask everybody is how would you do this different, or what ideas do you have? And I'll back that up for a second, is to say one of the things that we do when we get into the whole 5 steps to 2 steps type thinking is we ask everybody in the conference room, we say, everybody open your calendars and find something that you do 2 or 3 times a week on your calendar. Because most often it is generating a report. Most often it is checking in with somebody. It's a very tactical, it's a very turnkey thing that they're trying to do. If it's there 3 times or more, a machine can do it, right? I mean, and if you don't think you can feed your dog, that a machine can feed your dog, go to Amazon.
Exactly.
Right now. But,
or clean the litter box.
Or clean the litter box. You're not going to let a robot bathe your baby anytime soon. But I can tell you right now that most of the cars on the road have got lane assist and adaptive cruise control. They're driving themselves already. So there's not a whole lot that we're not going to be able to take out of the ordinate task parts of our lives, right? And start to have software, start to have intelligence, neural networks, and all kinds of other mashups of things that disparate people are working on right now. Just imagine when they start working together, are going to do to make our lives. It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tim, I don't know if you mentioned, I don't think you mentioned it here, but do you want to talk a little bit about how you got your start with AI, like how recent that was and what kind of led you there?
Sure. I mean, happy to talk about it. I mean, you can go back to around 2010 and 11, and I was a mobile strategist at that time. I was working for Edelman, the world's largest PR firm, the world's largest independent agency. I ran their mobile program in North America, and we had different things we were doing for different clients where we were looking at sensor technology. We weren't calling it low energy Bluetooth. We were calling it near field communications back then, right? And it was something different at the time. It was more a radio frequency than it was anything else. And we started to look at different ways that we could do, just as I've already stated, we could cut corners in operational processes. We could do the same thing in terms of mobile apps that could create utility for people to order coffee remotely and do other things, right? And with that, we started to look at very early days of algorithms, right? Is what they were. It was fantastic math. And it was fantastic math that had been digitized and put us into this ultimate string of if, then that, and not that,
Right.
then do this.
Right.
So early days of that kind of statistical logic, which is what we're dealing with right now with ChatGPT and Claude is statistical logic.
Yeah.
But early days of that, that's probably where it was. We weren't calling it AI though. We were calling it automation at the time. We were calling them sensors. We were doing that. It was later, 2014 to 2016, I was living in the Bay Area and I was working for a company called Signal Labs, which was media intelligence. We used to say, stay ahead of what the world thinks. And it was real-time analysis of everything that was happening in print media, television, because you can capture closed caption television everywhere right now. And you can do it then. You can do it really well now. And then of course anything's happening around social, blogs, websites, anywhere else, right? We were looking. There were issues back then of. There were these bot farms that were in Asia and Australia, Europe, and actually one here in the Americas at the time, that every time a certain political candidate would tweet, in a matter of milliseconds, 20,000 accounts would retweet it, right? There were the other things that are not political where, because that gets us into a conversation about disinformation and everything.
Right.
Swaying.
We try to avoid that here.
Yeah, swaying public opinion one way or another, right?
Right.
And here we are in an election year. But anyway, where I'm going with this is there was this fascinating thing that was happening where some of these groups were basically bringing up old news, like an oil spill or a pharmaceutical company who failed FDA approval. The news could be 10 years old, but they could make a trend on Twitter, and CNN had it automatically go on their ticker if it was a trending topic on Twitter. And there were companies who lost almost billions of dollars in market cap because of it, because of the negative sentiment associated with what they were reading, right? And they called their brokers, and Wall Street just dumped the stocks. So what we found was our ability to do a couple of things. We were able to put a wildcard operator in the Boolean search that we were using for the social listening that would help us understand that the things that were making this story trend were a bunch of accounts that were just open 2 days ago, right? Because Twitter was doing its job to shut them down. It was trying everything to put it time, right? It was trying, but they would be back the next day, right? And so we basically put some rules in to say let's not analyze this, or let's analyze it differently. Let's sequester this to get a different analysis on really what's happening. What do people really feel like, and what are the robots doing to us? Right. So with that, we started to look at not only how we could do all of the above, but how could we create, and we weren't even calling it generative AI at the time, but how could we create AI that could produce text, that could give somebody in the communications suite or the marketing suite, the public affairs suite, give them directional guidance, not just a dashboard, but also something that says, hey, right now, you should reach out to this person and this person, and put an update on Facebook that says something contrary to this, right? It would basically prescribe a next best action. So, we knew that was AI at the time. We did know that was artificial intelligence, and it's still today. When you think about it, it is legacy machine learning, and it is artificial intelligence that was around then, which is manifested into contemporary artificial intelligence, AI models today that are deep in the pipes of companies that are doing this. And they're working along technologies like robotic process automation and things like that to make things happen that we think is just simple connections with technology. But it's a digital workforce that is going to work on the inside of the majority of the Global 2000 and many companies who are adopting present day contemporary systems, right? It's happening. Yeah.
Wow. That's one of my favorite things is hearing how people ended up there, and I love how it always starts with like cutting corners or like trying to like simplify a task. And the bot farm issue, I've seen a bunch of videos on that recently, and it's crazy to see a person sitting at a laptop with however many hundreds of phones ahead of them and just clicking buttons and watching those scroll. And a lot of us that are I guess people who use social media and that type of thing, you don't really give that much thought. I mean, some of us do, right? You're like, there's a ton of bot accounts that are driving this, but the danger of that, like you said, with knocking off a bunch of market cap off of a company that with old news, that's insanity. But
a company whose nose had been clean for the 10 years since, right?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, there's that kind of situation, and there's there's the general thing that people have to understand on the cybersecurity front, period, that AI widens the footprint, right? It widens the vulnerability range that companies have today, because no longer, with all due respect, is it the 12-year-old Romanian boy waiting for his moment in the sun,
right,
breaking to get a million credit card numbers.
Yeah,
it is not just that. It is the fact that there are very sophisticated bad actors who are knocking on millions of doors every second to find the vulnerable hole in the wall or door left open to get in and get information. Not to mention what they're doing in countries like Myanmar and Cambodia right now, and training people how to get phone numbers off the dark web and to send us texts all day that say, hey, there's a package waiting for you at USPS right. At the postal station right now. Yes. Click this link and give us your address and your credit card number. Or, or getting an email address and saying, hey, impersonating. Happened to one of my employees last week. They got an email. It looked like it was coming from me. The email address was not mine, but it said Tim Hayden, sending an email to that employee and saying, hey, I'm trying to pull a secret surprise on everybody. I'm busy. Can you go to Target and buy 3 $50 Target cards?
Get some gift cards. Yeah. Oh, man.
Right? This is just part of, when you think about AI and AI agents, this is what bad actors can do to go find the information that enables them to go do stuff like that. And this is what everybody has to understand, is that there's a lot of systems we use that are built on code that's 30 years old, right? It can't be held together. It's a house of cards. And we're starting to see that in the news with data breaches and outages and hacks right now. We're seeing these things start to happen right now before our very eyes. I'm afraid it's going to get worse before it gets better, but it's the part of AI that people don't want to talk about, right? It's just this and the bot farms are just two of those things that I think a lot of people just they may watch 60 Minutes and be educated on it, but it's not in the news every day. It's not something that Mike's going around and educating everybody at the office.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you're right about that, and I think that a lot more people are looking at thinking of remembering the Terminator movies and these other things, and thinking, oh, that's how it's going to get us, and that's how the world. No, it's not going to be that. It's going to be bad actors using AI and a flurry of that and acceleration upon acceleration, right? And that's going to compound as things do, right? Like to cause a lot of havoc. And I'm not saying exactly how the world's going to end, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like in my mind, it's bad actors that are driving this, right? I'm much less concerned. I think that, hey, maybe someday we might have a Terminator situation. I think well before the Terminator situation, we'll actually have a human situation where they're just a lot more efficient at driving. The bad actors are much more powerful than they used to be. Now, I also think to myself, well, how do you then combat that, right? Security is one of the things in my mind that I feel like AI can be the most like do a lot of good, right? Because if you've got a crazy velocity on these bad actors, well, you kind of need a crazy velocity, right? Like to combat that, right? So I do think there's some opportunities there as well, right? That we have to be resourceful. We have to understand that that this stuff is going to change on both sides all the time, right? It's always changing. Yep.
Totally. And you had mentioned earlier, I mean, a lot of the software that folks are licensing today is SOC 2 tested, SOC 3 tested, right?
Yeah.
And then companies themselves can have a SOC put in place, right?
Right.
And that usually has a price tag associated with it.
Sure.
Even when you do that, though, it's something we've talked about a couple times already about building the literacy within the organization among the employees, right?
Right.
Is having them understand how they can be better about governance and how they can be better about protection, changing their passwords on a regular basis and not using the same password in more than one place. Simple things that a system like Dashlane can do for you, right?
Yeah.
Can just automatically do for you. There's that kind of thing. There's multi-factor authentication. There's updating your operating system when your system tells you, I know you have 52 tabs open in your browser.
Right.
I know you do.
Yeah.
But guess what? You need to shut your computer down and let it restart and download the bug fixes and the security patches now.
Absolutely.
So, it's funny because this gets back to the human side is a whole lot of the reasons that bad things happen and a whole lot of reasons of why AI won't perform the way it said it would on the wrapper, pun intended.
Yeah.
Is because humans are humans and humans make mistakes. They squirrel. I mean, humans just make missteps, and that's the best way to say it. And it goes back to what we were talking about before. It's everybody just has to respect and not give themselves a hard time that this is our first rodeo.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that take, and it's funny that you mentioned rodeo, and I told Rico, I was like, we should name this one like wrangling your data with Tim Hayden, because I know your LinkedIn is saddle up, right? Like we gotta add this theme in there. So I love the take. I love the first rodeo thing. It just being real with. Exactly. Nobody's an AI expert right now. If you say you're an AI expert, you're not, right?
How? Let's see the certificates. Where did you go?
Right. No. Right.
2 Coursera courses. What did you do?
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, you may have experience. You may be very proficient with Python. There may be a lot of college students that I talk to these days, interns that I've had come out, like from comms and journalism, who've been taught R as a language, right?
Yeah.
To gen up analytics within Excel spreadsheets and things like that, right? And I just, it's people are at different steps in their journey. They're coming from different vantage points, different starting points. To the point you made, Rico, right? Is it's going to be different for everybody. And what's funny about it is we talk about AI and like it's a one thing. It's just not. Right. It's coming to market in a million different ways, and it will change business over time. It will change most of the fundamentals on operations. It won't do much to change the fundamentals on business performance, right? It may influence business performance, but it won't change how we measure success. I don't think. It will help us to the points we've already made. It will help us do things faster, cheaper, better, with more volume. That's what we're here to do, right? We're not here to replace humans. We're not there to do that. We're here to let humans do what humans do better already, which is be creative and thoughtful.
Yeah.
Have a smile on their face and ask your son, does he play baseball or not? Right. I mean, this is what you do in sales. This is what Dale Carnegie taught us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rico.
No, I was going to say, so we're going to get into that part of the show where we kick it back to them. And if you have anything, Tim, that you have going on that you'd like to say, any exciting projects, that type of thing, go ahead and hit us with it.
You bet. No, we've got a number of master data management projects underway. Some in the automotive industry, we do work in other verticals, but we've got a bank who's on year 2 of using Treasure Data, which is an enterprise customer data platform that has a very thoughtful maturation curve, right? As the data and the machine learning starts to mature, right? In terms of emulating what humans have done with querying audiences, building audiences, those kinds of things. It's fun to see that happen. That's a bank we're working with right now. It's doing that, and then we've got a couple of clients right now where they're asking us to build bots that emulate their top performers. Right? They want to see what they can do for the purpose of building more volume. Right? More throughput is what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Is to say, how do we emulate that decision making and the workflows of this person who, from a productivity and performance standpoint, is stellar? How do we learn from them? How do we transfer knowledge from them to the bot itself, the model itself, the logic tree and decision tree we use to configure it, modeled after that person? And we're doing one in the medical space right now with insurance claims processing. So this is, it all falls in that folder that says First Rodeo on it. It falls into saying that, we have no two clients that are trying to do the same thing right now.
Right.
Even when it comes to in the same vertical, the car dealers we meet with, we're hearing different objectives. We're hearing different KPIs, if they want to call them that, but different quantitative goals that they have with the business that are different from the store across town that we might have worked with already, or the store in another city that's selling the same brand. I mean, it's just awesome. I like to think of it as DNA, is when we get in there and we start to bring all the data in this capacity, from fixed ops, from repair orders and service and warranty claims and all these things, right? Everything that happens on that side of the business, combining with everything on the other side of the business, which everybody calls variable, sales, F&I, internet sales, all of that, marketing, combining all of that together, that's what gives you true business intelligence. It's what gives you the true opportunity. And we have a couple of dealers right now who are ready to go in that direction. They are excited about that, and they know enough about what we've talked about training AI models on that data once it's all been ingested, once it's all in operation and cleansed and structured, all the things that we do. And they're starting to look, just like with the insurance claim processing, they're starting to say is, how do we get this to become representative of what the people on the sales floor need to know from our information? How do we get them to talk to our data? How do we tie it into the phone system? So when a call comes in using caller ID, the record for that record associated with that phone number pops up on the screen. So you can have the most empathetical, hey, Mike, it's good to hear from you.
Yeah.
Tell me the last 4 digits of the credit card you used last winter, right? Creepy stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But verifying who you are, and then immediately saying, "Are you calling about your '72 GMC Jimmy?"
Yes,
because we see you've been in a number of times for air filters and lug nuts, and what can we do for you today, right? I mean, that's different than the personalization that everybody's been talking about for a decade. That's individualization. It's where we're headed, and I think it's. I have the opportunity to be one of only a few people talking about it right now in 2024, at least August of 2024. But a year from now, I bet we're going to start to hear stories where it's happening to people, right? In terms of their retail experiences and hopefully in the car business, right? They're starting to see that kind of thing happen.
Yeah, so Zachary from Numa on the human side of AI, one of the things he said that hit so freaking hard was the scariest thing for the person who's about to pick up the phone is truly who's on that line. Like, you could see their name, but the name is not enough, right? You have to understand where they're at in their journey, right? And like these different pieces of information, the more that you can pick up the phone armed with that data so that you can immediately act on that, act appropriately per where that customer is, right? Like in their journey, the better off that you and the customer are going to be, right? They're going to be like surprised that like, wow, this person was exactly what I needed. Well, yeah. I mean, it's human performance powered by AI, really. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, In that vein, people who've heard me speak more than once or see me on more than one podcast will always hear me bring up the Sewell experience, right? The Sewell dealership experience. Mm-hmm. I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The story goes like that. And my parents always had a Lexus or a Cadillac in the garage. And for 15, maybe 20 years, my dad got every one of those cars from the same person, right?
Wow.
They never called service. They don't call service. You call your guy. You call your guy. Right. He would call us. Yeah. He would call us and say, hey, I got a new LS400. I want to bring it by and show you what the next year model is going to look like, right? And sure enough, we'd buy the next year model LS400 and there would be in their garage. I mean, that right there, to the point you just made, I mean, there are companies like Sewell. There are companies like Southwest Airlines, right? Mm-hmm. Southwest Airlines has a culture to have every single team member be contextually relevant and empathetic with you at every point. And they do a great part of that through storytelling and humor, right? And it relaxes you. It disarms you as that's happening. You can always tell there's people on the flight when they're flying Southwest for the first time and they always fly American and they don't like it. They don't like the jokes, right? But everybody else who's on the plane, as soon as they ask us to sing happy birthday to the kids sitting, over the wing, we all sing happy birthday and we clap at the end of it, right? Because it's Southwest Airlines. And it's because of how they're dialed to do it. So the hope I have, if there's an opportunity for, at least one parting shot, is that if you want to think about what AI can do for your company, it can put you in a position to where you're delivering indelibly positive customer experiences, right? Not just relevant and converting, not just trying to sell, right? Yeah. It is that people will look at the email or they'll leave the chat or they'll hang up the phone and they'll turn around and tell somebody 15 minutes later and say, I just had the best experience. It just happened to me, right? And there are those companies who have invested heavily in culture and heavily into operations that are customer centric and customer empathetic, right? And they're the ones that are going to be able to really leverage this AI to take it even further, right? They're going to be able to do that, or they'll mess it up and they'll try to replace the human side of it, right? I mean, let's be fair. That's just it can go one of two ways.
You'll get a mix for sure.
It'll go one of two ways, right? Yeah. But that's where we are. That's because I'm a data guy and I know what should happen if you have your data together. I know what my experience should be. I feel sorry for the people at the service desk at rental car companies because it never works the way it's supposed to. And I just look at them and turn my head and I say, really? You have the credit card on file. Do I have to show it to you again?
Right.
No.
Right.
And really, I didn't ask for a Caravan. I asked for a mid-size Impala. Come on.
Right. Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
You can just tell there's an inventory issue there. I understand there's other things at play. Yeah. But the fact that things aren't reconciled, I didn't get a text before I walked in. That said, hey, just to let you know, this thing's happening, right? Right. Could you have your credit card ready? We can't seem to find it. I mean, just getting into that and getting me prepped for it. When I start to think about what AI can do, it's things like that, right? Right. Is let's have better communication, more empathetic communication, more direct communication with our customers instead of just trying to be funny on Facebook and Instagram.
Right. Yeah.
Buy a pair of socks on our website, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And I mean, you're absolutely right there too. Like when I call to order a pizza, if the person if I've ordered at the place before and they ask me my phone number again, or, after they ask me for my phone number, it's like, they ask me for all these other, it's like, dude, you don't have that? Like I worked at Domino's like 30 years ago or something. And like, man, we had that back then, right? Like,
yeah.
So it does blow my mind. At this point, you should be well far ahead of that, and you should actually understand how I'm feeling today. You know what I mean?
Well, you bring it up. I mean, that's actually an example I give at many of the conferences I speak at. Is like, how many of you, when you have your favorite pizza place, right? How many of you, when you call your favorite pizza place, tell them that you want the same thing you got last week?
It's very common.
And if you're not doing that, try it this Friday, right? I mean, if you're not doing, but they all do it now, right? They all say, hey, the last time you were here, you ordered this exact pizza. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it again, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's data is all it is. It is
right. It's not even AI. I mean, that's just like
data.
It's
it's not even AI, right? It's it's better data governance, right? And it's the stepping stone for what you can do when it comes to automation. It can take you in that direction of really learning about, let's not say cut corners, but build efficiency and make the experiences frictionless. Make them the kinds of things that people turn around and tell their friends, right?
Yeah.
They tell their friends, their neighbors, their family, their coworkers, and say, you know why I'm driving that car? It's because, life is so easy with that dealer, right?
Yes.
It's just so easy with that dealer, right? That's what you want to have happen. I mean, that's what your grocery stores are trying to do is to put you in that routine, and they've done it a long time. Is they got you dialed up. They know what's in your bag. They know what everything else is, and they communicate to you in a way, and they give you customer service in a way that you know what, that's your place.
That's your place,
right?
Yeah. Yep.
Love that.
Yeah, no, exactly. So before we wrap up here, Tim, any advice, like direct advice to the listeners, as we're kind of wrapping down here, that you want to give?
I mean, nothing that we haven't already discussed, really. I know
we covered so much. I'm thinking, gosh,
I'd say, think twice before you upload anything to a public model. Obviously, change your passwords. Look into Dashlane, LastPass, some of these other systems that can be on your phone and your computer to help you make up passwords, right? To generate passwords for you. Not ones that are super comfortable in your head that are your mom's maiden name and your dog's name. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Your birthday.
Now I'm going to change my password. Thanks, Tim. I'm going to go change my password right now.
Because both your mom's maiden name and your dog's name are out on the internet. Somebody found it.
And then 1, 2, 3, 4 after.
1, 2, 3, 4. And they're knocking now, and they're using every combination of digits after it.
Exactly.
To knock on the door until they get in and they get all your email and your credit card numbers, right? So, let's do that. And I think a lot of what you guys offered, right, is how do we get collaborative and how do we get cooperative with our coworkers and people who work up above us and down below us and to the sides, left and right of us, and have conversations about, what else can we do together, or how do you get things done? How do you get things done, right? Because let me tell you how I get things done. You tell me how you get things done. Really? Well, I'm going to try what you do, right? I mean, that's that kind of thing. I mean, it's the thing I've told everybody when I, as a recovering mobile strategist, I still say this every once in a while. People say, how do we get started with this? And I say, really simple. How many of you handle social media, right? Because a lot of people in AI came from the social media world.
Right.
How many of you are digital marketers and do social content and content strategy, community management, that kind of thing? Lots of hands go up, and say, how many of you also run direct mail? Maybe 2 hands stay up. That's what you guys need to do. When you walk out of here and you go to the office on Monday, if you're the digital marketing team, go find the person who runs direct mail. Because the person who runs direct mail is and certainly was historically the most analytically driven person in the organization. And they're sending stuff to the same people that you're posting content for.
Right.
Ask them what they do. Ask them what's working. You share with them what your analytics look like, right? Just start that over a cup of coffee once a month. Do it tomorrow. And then call me if you're ready to pull it all together. And we'll make it happen in real time.
That's awesome. Excellent. Rico, any parting words on your side? Any questions?
No, I just want to thank Tim for coming out again. Every time we've had a conversation with you, you'll always walk away. Like, you literally have to, Mike and I think last time we talked, we sat back, we're just like, what just happened? Like, we just absorbed so much stuff. We were so excited to have you back on. So just thanks again, Tim, for all of your insights, all the information you gave to listeners and stuff. And hopefully you'll come back and join us again in the future.
You bet. No, you guys are doing it, man. I mean, you guys are, you're on that bronc right now. You're trying to hang on, or that bull hanging on for 8 seconds every time you try to do something with AI. Every time you experiment, and I just appreciate you guys. I appreciate what you do, again, to support the human side of AI, to be interested in there, and to leverage the people we bring to that on Wednesdays. I really appreciate that. It's on Clubhouse every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock Central. 10 o'clock
sorry.
Central.
10 o'clock Central. We'll go by your time. We'll go by your time.
Here in Texas, it's at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Texas, yeah. Hey,
that's where the time is, Mike.
The data. We're in Texas here, folks.
Yeah. But you guys are great, and I love the way you ask questions and the way you're exploring it, and the way you explore it with your guests. It's a privilege to be here with you, and I want to thank you for me being here. Definitely, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. And absolutely, I mean, I agree with everything that Rico said. I also just want to say, we really appreciate the human side, you and your position as well, and the human side of AI, and you and the other founders. I mean, the reality is, you are doing the community a service, right? Like when you're building these checklists and you're building awareness, right? And you're bringing people in. This is not really directly for any of your benefit, right? Like as the founders, and you are really it's a labor of love, and that's why we truly believe there's a huge power in that. I've also always believed that it's hey, the human side of AI. Gosh, who doesn't that make sense to, right?
Right.
So yeah, love what you're doing, Tim. Appreciate you being on the show. I love actually, this is my first rodeo. I'm going to have to remember that. And maybe we'll have to get one of those hats. We'll have to come down to Texas.
I'll take a picture of it, and I'll send it to you guys. I'll take a picture.
Outstanding.
It's on the other side of the building, or I would have just run and got it.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Very good.
It's a mindset. It's a mindset.
Yeah,
we're all in this together, right? We're all going to figure this out. It's what the human side of AI is about. It's what Mike, you're doing in your company. It's what we try to do to help companies take those crawl, walk, and run motions to get going and get moving in a direction of change, right? It's a motion of change. It's a motion of embracing an appetite for doing things different, right? Showing up different in the marketplace, operating differently. It's not always going to work. Some of it's going to fail. Some of it's not going to work. But at the end of the day, if you're not trying, that's the failure, right? If you're not trying, you're not giving yourself a chance. You're not giving your colleagues and your coworkers, your customers, a chance to try to do things more fluidly, more frictionless, and to the benefit of the business performance and your happiness. I mean, it's that short, right?
Yep, yeah. Absolutely. And, kind of thinking about that there, when you're doing these experiments, here's a quick tip from me. When you're doing these experiments in your company, and even by yourself, what I would suggest everybody do, right, is before you get started, write down hey, what am I looking to accomplish? What does success look like? What is my efficiency at this now, right? So that at the end, right, you can go back and really an experiment, if you're a scientist and you're doing experiments, you're documenting everything before, during, and after. We need to do the exact same thing with AI. So that's my kind of takeout.
Exact same thing with AI. It's what it's for the financial modelers of the world, right? Your CFOs, your business managers who do last year versus this year modeling, right? It's the same thing. It's just much more frequent. It's going to be more frequent in terms of the projects and the initiatives that you're trying to manage and you're trying to test. That's really what it comes down to is what's our current state look like, and how can we and how do we think we can manifest something that's better, cheaper, faster, all those things. Saddle up. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Awesome. Tim, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your evening. And we're absolutely going to have to do a follow-up episode or segments. I mean, this has been great. So you
bet. I mean, things will be different in 6 weeks. I mean, it just
we'll have other things to talk about. So.
Absolutely. You bet. No. Awesome. Thanks again, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Tim.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Yep. See you later. Bye. Bye.
Peace.
Yeah. So, man, Rico, that was a heck of an episode with Tim.
Sure.
I feel like there's so much content there. I'm like, man, we could probably split that into a few segments and just do
another season.
Another season, right? Do them by themselves. So, heck of an episode. Data is so important, folks. Just to kind of bring it back to that. And we are businesses are sitting on frickin' a lot of untapped frickin' gems. So these are the kind of things that as you're starting to have conversations in your business, don't forget about your data. And so I also want to give a quick shout out to Nick and the folks at Nomad Studios. Nomad has been mastering our videos, mastering our audio for our videos as well. Nick and the crew over there, just absolutely freaking amazing. Thank you guys. And they've done a heck of a job. It's like every time I listen to watch one of the new episodes, I'm like, ooh, this sounds so good.
Compared to the old ones,
yeah,
especially.
even the flow on the way in and everything. I'm like, man, it's so much different. To be sort of fumbling around with it, and then you see what a professional does, and you're like, there we go. So thank you, Nick and the crew at Nomad. And Rico, any parting words here?
No, I really don't have it. I'm going to double down on that with Nomad Studios. They do a fantastic job. And, again, a big shout out to human side of AI for everything they're doing over there and the folks that they allow us, not allow us, but allow us into those conversations to meet some of these people who are doing great things. And if you're a person out there that has a business that hasn't yet looked at AI, by all means, dip your toe in the water. Don't be afraid. It's not all tech people that are in there. It's not people who came from coding backgrounds. They're everyday folks who are looking to solve solutions. And if you want to fly high with the Eagles, right, you're gonna hang out with them. So you want to get in there with those folks and listen to what they have to say. So
wow, you got a new quote on every one of these episodes. Happy cows make more milk. You got to fly high with the Eagles. Got to hang with them. I love it. We'll have to do one of these each episode, folks. So one thing that I'd like to ask is that if you like the content that we're providing here, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to our podcast. And this is the first time I think we've asked this, but we would love to get some more reviews on the podcast for Apple and Spotify. Let us know what you think, and so we're excited to continue to forge forward. I feel like we've got a heck of a momentum here. The guests have been just amazing that we've had. I honestly can't, every one of them, oh my gosh, how's that so good? And we absolutely love putting out content for you all and really raising that awareness. Don't be shy. Reach out to us if there's something you want to understand more about and you want to see on the show or in the AI Bytes newsletter that we have weekly. Let us know. And we're looking forward to seeing everybody back in the lab soon. See you, folks.
See you, everybody.